is not going to go from 30% growth to 5% growth overnight. There's some transition, which I'm not going to get into, but this is an alternative idea to use the dividend growth rate on the model to estimate the cost of equity, to estimate the cost of equity. Now, the other model we're going to use is capital asset pricing model. Or CAPM. CAPM in practical work does not necessarily explain in terms of all kinds of companies. There are some variations. For example, the implied required rate of return for small cap stocks and much lower than the actual dollar. Similarly, the implied cost of capital is higher than what they should be for growth companies and large companies. But for the purposes of it's the case, in upper level finance classes, we actually make those kinds of adjustments. There are slightly more sophisticated CAPM type models, so-called empirical asset pricing models. For the purposes of this class, CAPM is your Canon. Canon with a single N in the middle, not double N. You guys know the origin of the word Canon? C-A-N-O-N. Which language do you think it may have come from? It actually comes from Arabic. In Arabic, law means kanun. Canon is law. And it goes back to Ibn Sina's, or you guys know him as Avicenna. He's the founder of modern medicine. The guy who actually thought about different transmission vectors for different diseases. This is 10th and 11th centuries. His treatise, which was used as the main textbook in medicine until 19th century, it was called Canon of Medicine, or the Laws of Medicine. It basically says return on equity equals risk-free rate plus beta times market risk premium, or return on the market as we talked about in chapter 11. Theoretically, this is a nice concept, but it needs to be made operational. To make it operational, we kind of need to figure out, where do I get that risk free? Because this model does not have the concept of time. It does, but time is divided into two pieces, now and later. That's it. How long is that later? Who knows? Okay? It's an abstract concept. Some economists argue, especially for the purpose of pricing stocks, we should use the short-term treasury rates, like 1 month, 3 months, whatever. But for the purpose of project evaluation, remember, a project that you're evaluating typically has useful cash flows from 5 to 10 years or long. Right? So if I'm going to use a calculated cost of equity, it's a good idea to use a longer term risk-free rate. I mean, a 10-year treasury bond is risk-free if you're going to hold it for 10 years. Okay? Doesn't mean there's no price risk, but if you're not trading it, it doesn't matter. That's why, for the purpose of stock valuation, I will always use the short-term rates, but for the purpose of capital budgeting, I will use the longer-term rates. So RF is pretty much use 10 years or length of the project treasury rates. Currently, 10-year rate is about 4.11, but always use daily average of last few months, presumably three months, for example. That's because the yield to maturity on these bonds change every day. So I don't want my decision to change from one day to next. Example, let's look at today, for example, the 10-year treasuries went up by 3 basis points. I mean, that roughly means the 10-year bond lost about out. Let's look at just last 1 month. About 3 weeks ago, it was 395. It's now 411. 16 basis. That's about 100. That means 10-year treasury bonds lost about 1% of their value over the last 3 weeks. I don't want my decisions to change every day. That's why using the average is a good idea. Similarly, for things like earnings yield, it's probably a good idea to use some averages. Because earnings yield is expected earnings divided by price, but the price fluctuates every day. Oh, I actually get rid of that? Oh, okay, I was writing in the wrong place. Data, we may use sophisticated models to estimate it. Not supplicated, sophisticated. The word sophisticated comes from the root of Sophia, which in ancient Greek means wisdom, knowledge. So when we say something is sophisticated, it is related to wisdom. Or be practical and use data estimates calculated by financial information sources such as financeyahoo.com or NVIDIA. Currently, that number is I even have this here. Yeah, 228. Even CNBC has it. What is more complicated? The estimation of required return on the market or market risk premium. One thing you can do to realize market risk premiums, but don't have this go back a lot in time. I mean, since 1871, the difference between the return to the S&P 500 and short-term treasury rates is about 8%. So on average, historically, market demanded an 8% compensation to carry stock market risk. The trouble is, the market in 1871 is very different from the market now. Not just because of the regulations, but also because of the market participants. I wouldn't even use data from 1990s. And the last 10, 15 years, there's almost no cost to no brokerage because of the competition. You can use Fidelity, Schwab, Robinhood, what have you, and go buy and sell stocks. You pay your tuition. Is that a smart business model? I don't know. That's a simple discussion. That's what the market is.